Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev. Okay, I think at this point I've gotten most of what I'd like to see in Coquito in there. So the CLI, you can pretty much spin up everything from auth, databasing, all this kind of stuff, pretty much right off the back. There might be a couple little things I might add. Maybe I'll set it up so that way you can specify your models up front. But yeah, so I figured now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making videos of doing different implementations, different types of apps using Coquito. One, to show you what it can do, and two, for me to find bugs. You know, best way for me to test it out is just to build things, and you know, if I'm going to build things, I might as well let you watch. Okay, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to just create like a dog app. I always just like creating a simple dog app. That's always, you know, it's better than creating another to-do list. Although I like making my to-do list. I've created thousands of them at this point. Okay, so let's do this. I'm gonna create a new folder. Make dir. Call this dog app. Okay, and this one is going to be all-inclusive. So basically, not an API. We're going to be using server-side rendering and all that stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with my app 2. I'm going to borrow the scaffold.json as our starting place. Actually, I'm going to make sure I update my Coquito app to the latest version. So I'm going to do a sudo npm install globally Coquito CLI. Okay, just make sure that's update. Okay, now let's cd into that dog app folder. Okay, and then in that dog folder, I will paste that scaffold.json. That's always the starting place. And for this, we're not going to need GraphQL, so I'm going to put false. We're not going to need RPC, false. I am going to want a router for dog, so that's fine. I am going to want the body parser. I'm going to want to use EJS, just because it's the freshest in my mind right now. I'll leave that as is. Yeah, I am going to want a static folder. We'll call this dog app. All this doesn't really matter. And yeah, let's build it using Sqlite3. Why not? Okay, so I will scaffold all that out. So I'm going to just do Coquito scaffold in the same folder. It's going to read that scaffold.json and build our app. Okay, so there it goes. It's building our app. So look at that. Nice. Right now it's installing the dependencies. Now it's installing all the database stuff. And there we go. Cool. Yep, I did not opt for auth. I could have added auth. And basically the way I implemented the addition of auth, if you choose auth, you can choose basically SQL or Mongo. So that way it builds out the functions with that in mind. But instead of like building out all the routes for you, what it does, it gives you a bunch of functions that you can use to implement auth the way you want. That way the implementations are visible in case you need to change them for your particular app. Okay. But also, again, you know, you may want to implement authentication in GraphQL or implement authentication in RPC. And those patterns may be very different, but they're generally going to have the same basic steps. So, you know, those functions are there. You can change your implementations. You can import them into sort of however you're building your app. Saves you a lot of time, but doesn't necessarily completely wire it up for you. Like that's, again, the point of Coquito. With the Coquito CLI, you can spin up a lot of the application, save yourself a lot of boilerplate, but you're not necessarily hiding all the implementation details. There is some implementation details in the core library that do kind of get abstracted away, like how the GraphQL API is set up and how the RPC API is set up and all that stuff. But outside of that, you know, everything else is fairly visible. And if you know Express, like it's, you know, you see it at work. Okay, so our app is now scaffolded, so we don't need that anymore. The next thing I'm going to do is I need to define my .env variables. So port, we'll just say 4555. Database URL, since we're using SQLite, I think it's going to be like SQLite3. I always forget. So I'm going to need to refer to the Sqlize documentation. Sqlize. Okay, let's go to the get started. And okay, that's kind of how it's going to look like. So it's just SQLite, not SQLite3. And then I would just do like ./db.db. Actually, I think it's just db.db. Okay, and that'll create a file called db.db. The file name doesn't particularly matter, but basically whatever's after the two dots is the file it'll create. And secret, it could be anything, so we'll just make it cheese. It doesn't really matter. I'm not using authentication in this one, so I don't think that secret is going to be used anywhere. Okay, so now that that's all defined, next thing I want to do, let me just take a look at my connection.js, make sure that should look pretty boilerplatey, so that's all good. Let's go to my models. I need to create a dog model. So I am going to want to do a REST. So I know I'm using SQL, so what I can do is I can do Coquito add SQL model. Okay. And the SQL model I want to add is dog. And that's going to add the dog model right under here. So there I have my dog model, which is just going to have a name. And then we're also going to add a property called like age. So age type data types dot number, or like int, probably int. It's just plain old int. Small int. I guess small int is probably number. I like number better. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to have any other additional details on that schema, so that's pretty good to go. Okay, and again, the way this is going to work is that this dog.sync function is what actually is going to create the table, and if I update the schema, we'll update the table, so I don't have to really think about that. It's pretty nice. Okay, so that kind of like does the work of like what a migration would do. Cool, so now that that's all set, now I need my routes, so I'm going to create REST routes for my dog. So I technically already have a controller file for dog, which I could use that. But a nice thing I can do is this. I can just be like, I'll delete the dog.js. And then I'm going to write Coquito add REST routes for dog, lowercase. Okay, now I have this nice controller here. Okay, and since it's the default export, and it's the same file name as the controller I had before, it'll automatically kind of work in my server.js. So I have to do no additional work. It's there. So now I can actually start building out my routes. Okay. So let's import. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to seed some data. So I'm going to create a new file, seed.js. And we're going to import dog from models dog. Okay. And we're just going to create some dogs. Dog.create. And we're just going to say name, Sparky, age 6. And we'll just do that a whole bunch of times. Okay, and we'll just do a bunch of awaits. And we'll console.log each one so that we can see that the result of it, each one. There we go. So create some dogs. We'll call one dog Sarge. I don't care about the ages. Tippy. Sacco. Okay, and that's literally all that'll do. That'll just let us seed that data. I'm going to actually go to my package.json, create a seed script. So I'm going to head down to my scripts here and create a seed script and say node db/seed.js. Okay, and then that should be it. So I'll do npm run seed. Let's see what happened there. Agile teaching video models dog. Oh yeah, did I forget to put the extension? So let's see. Yep, there's no extension there. It's an ES module, so you have to include the extensions. Cool. Okay, we see the dogs got aired, but no such table dogs. Did it create the DB file? Yeah, it did create the DB file. Select insert into dogs. Okay, so I see what happened here. See, it ran this insert before it had a chance to create the table. Okay. So if I run that again, I don't know if I'll get that same issue. Error, SQLite, no such table. Dogs. SQLite. Create table does not exist. Dogs. Log. Let me just take a look at the DB, the connection file. Action.authenticate. And the model, we're running the sync right there. So that should sync the dog model, which I'm seeing happening. So we're type table and name equals dogs. Age, let's see here, ID, primary interesting key, name, varchar, age, number, created at date time, updated at date time will load. So there's in that query. So it's failing on the inserts. Even though it does look like we're running the query to insert dogs. Okay, as it turns out, it was this little alter true, so I'll take that out of the scaffolding. But basically, if you remove that, and again, just so you know what the difference is that if you just have dog.sync and you don't have, like, you pass that alter property, if you alter the schema of dog, it doesn't automatically, like, drop and rebuild the table. I think it'll still, basically, it creates a table if it doesn't exist. Okay, so now if I run the seed now, we see we actually get things that are created. So you see like here, we're seeing a console log that Sako was created, and before that we see Tippy was created. And again, I ran it before, so you see like, it's like 6. That means we have like 2 of them in there, but that's fine. Okay, so you see that's all working. Okay, and then you can see like in each object we have the properties we'd expect, the ID number, the age, spark key, so forth. Okay, cool. So we've seeded the database. Okay, and I actually might include the seed in the scaffolding. So that's a note to make. So making notes on what updates to make. So far we're gonna remove the alter from that sync statement, and we're gonna add the seed into the scaffolding. Why? Might as well just have that file and that thing ready to go for you. Okay, that's not a bad idea if you scaffold a database. Okay, cool. So that's all working well and good. But again, you saw like before, like I just scaffold the stuff and like I'm pretty much off to the races with Sqlize. Okay, so now that I have that, I can go write my routes. So I can go over here and just do our first route. And since I have EJS set up, I can just do EJS. So basically I'll just do this. Make this an async function. And again, I have this to tell me like, hey, like I know what this is for. This is for /dog. This is the index route. It should return all items. So I want to get my dogs, which is going to equal await dog. So I'll import that from models. So that's being imported from models. Await dog dot find all. That's going to find all the dogs. Okay, I'm going to console log the dogs just in case I misunderstand what that array should look like. But then I'm going to res.render we're going to render the index. Actually, technically, I can just write index. I'm pretty sure that's how I have it configured. And then I can pass it the dogs. There we go. So there is my index route. So now I can head over to views, go to my index.ejs, and just say, hey, like h1, the dog app. Let's just render some dogs. Okay, so here we're going to have a div. And then we'll use EJS to render a dog for. So for let dog of dogs. And for each dog, what we're going to do is we're going to render a section. And in that section, we will have an h1 with the dog's name, dog.name, h2, and the dog's age, dog.age. Okay, and then that should do that. So I should be able to see all those dogs we seeded if I run this. So if I can type in npm run dev, so that way it's watching my files. Okay, it failed running the file, so let's see what the error is. Okay, experimental watch mode, that's not the error, not module not found. Video, models, dog. Okay, yeah, that just goes to, again, the way I gotta stop trusting the automatic imports by VS Code, because basically what happens is I wrote my routes over here in the controller, it's again, sometimes VS Code doesn't automatically add the extension to it, so you gotta add that extension. Okay, there it's running. So localhost 4555 slash dog. Or is it slash dogs? Let's see here. Oh, server's not running. No default engine was specified. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. .ejs. There we go. Try that again. Slash dog. And there we go. Okay, so we see I'm rendering all the dogs. Nice. Okay. Easy peasy. Cool. So now we can do our show route where we can like get one dog. Okay. So now I would just say const find by, I think it was, no, not const dog equals await dog dot find by pk, okay, which is basically the primary key, okay, which is going to technically be the ID. So I have the ID already defined for you. That saves you some time. Okay, cool. So there's the dog, and now I can just like res dot render, and we'll say a show dot EJS, and that's going to be past the dog. Okay, so there's the show dot EJS. So I will create a new file show.ejs. Okay, and in there we'll just say like percentage equals dog dot name. And again, this could be EJS, this could be handlebars, this could be nunchucks, this could be anything. H2 the dog dot age. There we go. Okay, so that is good. Okay, so now I should be able to go. What's this? Unexpected reserved word. Await dog. Oh, I forgot to put the sync. So let me head back to my controller, dog, and to this one right here. I need to add the async keyword here. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Probably not a bad idea to put the asyncs by default. Async routes. Okay. So now let's go try this out. So now if I go back to the browser, and if I go to, /dog/1, Barky. If I go to /dog/2, Sarge. Wonderful. Okay. Cool. And cool. So /dog/2 and that's good there. So now we just want a create route where we create a dog. So we just take the request.body and we're just going to say const. Doesn't even matter. We don't even need to do that. We'll wait dog.create. And we're just going to pass in the request.body. Okay, and then we're just going to redirect you back to /dog. res.redirect back to /dog. Okay, so now we just need a form that's going to post to that. So I can just go back to show like the index. We can create a form with an action of /dog. So it's gonna, and then method post. So it'll just make a post to /dog whenever you submit the form. It's gonna have an input that is gonna be of type equals text, whose name is going to be name, and that's good for now. Then we need age, so we'll have a number input with the name of age, and then we'll just have a button back to the submit button, create dog. Okay, and then that should be able to create dog. Dog.create, again, forgetting to add those asyncs. Okay, so back to the controller. Let me add the async here. So yeah, probably a good call to add those asyncs ahead of time. Okay, wonderful. So now let's go back to the main page here, /dog. Scroll down, there's the form. So we'll create a new dog named Biff, who's age 5, and I hit create dog. Oh, we got a error there, so let's see what the error says. Request is not defined. Oh, I typed in request. It's supposed to be rec. Okay. So make a note of that. And again, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do it this way, where basically I'm not necessarily giving you the implementations. I'm giving you the code so that way you have full transparency. You can edit it to make sure that it works the way you want. But yeah, so going through this process is helping me fix all these little things that I want to just like tighten up. Rec.body, rec.body, good. And then honestly, this I just want to pass body. Okay. So let's try that again. So let's go back over here. Let's refresh. Go back to here. We'll say Biff, who is going to be 7. And now Biff gets created. So you can see, like, we did this 24 minutes. That included, a couple minor, like, figuring out some things. But I was able to get up and running with a database pretty quickly. Okay. But yeah, and then the thing is, I can do that with any templating language. I could do it with either Mongo or SQL. All you do is you create that scaffold.json, and yeah, it just works out pretty nicely. But yeah, just to show you what would happen if you did the like auth scaffolding. So let's say I did want to add auth. Okay, then what I would do is I would just do Coquito add auth SQL. That's going to add the files. It's going to install the libraries. So it's going to install like bcrypt, express session in case I want to use sessions or something like that. Okay, but then instead of just like, again, it's not going to set it up for me. Because I have to there's a lot of implementation decisions you have to make. But I have all these functions that are going to help me do that here. So you see, like, I have these functions for like, depending on what I want to do. So here's my middleware ready to go for session. Uh, middleware for parsing cookies if I'm going to be using cookies. Okay, basically the function for creating a user. So basically, if someone signs in, I just take the request bot. I'm just going to pass that request body to here. This function, a credentials check. Someone logs in, I can just pass that username and password they submitted from the form to this function, and it'll handle, hey, did they log in successfully? Okay, and then again, it also gave me the model. So if I head over to my models folder, I now have a user model all set up for username and password. Now, if there's any other properties that I want for my user, I can just add them. But those are gonna be the two main things that it gives me, and then I can go then use them. So I can go, add those pieces of middleware to my middleware array. So I can go add things like I can be like, oh, okay, I want the we're just looking at the cookie parsing middleware. I just have to go look it up, the name of that file. So let's see here. That would be in auth functions. I would want to go set up particular cookie parsing middleware. Is there anything else I really need to set up as middleware globally? No. It does also give you this auth function right here. So here's like the auth middleware. This would be the middleware that checks, hey, is the user logged in? But again, that's going to depend on how you want to set up your authentication. So basically I have three functions here. Okay, check session. So if you're doing session-based auth, I'm going to assume that you're creating like a property in your session called logged in, true or false. And I check that. But again, you might be doing it differently. So here's a function you can change the implementation. Okay, if you're using like bearer tokens, here's a function that checks the auth header and looks and extracts that token from the header and verifies it. But again, if you want to change the implementation, you can. Okay, then we have the function for decoding a token, which is there's a bunch of functions in here. And then if you're doing storing your JWT token in a cookie, I have a function for checking that, assuming you enable that cookie parsing middleware that was stated earlier. So I'm giving you sort of all the tools. Okay, so it's not quite right. Once we get to auth, it's not quite as plug and play as, let's say, something like a Rails, but it's giving you enough tools that you have a lot more flexibility, but you're still also saving yourself a lot of time. Like in the sense that, like, hey, a lot of the pieces I'm gonna want are here. I still gotta assemble them, but I'm not building them from scratch. So it's somewhere sort of like in between. Just we're building a pure Express app from scratch versus, but not quite the level of abstraction of something like Ruby on Rails, where basically there's only really one way to do it. And that's sort of what I'm trying to go for, like that nice sweet balance where basically I'm saving you a lot of time where I can, but I'm not necessarily preventing you from having the flexibility to architect the app that you want in the way that you want. You can pretty much still architect any kind of flow you want, but with slight amount of Rails. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Again, there's a lot of ways you can do this. Again, I could have built an AJS API and just said, hey, I don't want views. There's a lot of options of what I could have done. I'm still sort of like, again, fine tuning all these little like scaffolded files. But again, you get the files, you can change them to be what you want. And I try not to write code that would be too hard to read or make any of the implementation so complicated that you wouldn't be able to just take a moment, read the function, and kind of figure out how you want to edit it. And I try to put in a lot of comments so that way you know what the different lines of code are doing. So you can then customize this code and build things the way you want without having to do the things you don't need to do. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that. My name is Alex Merced. Have a great day and enjoy.